I'd like to talk about a subject that's very personal to me. My father's Aboriginal, like Steve, but my mother's English. So I sort of say that I'm a bit of an expert on reconciliation. So our subject today is, if you can read this, reconciliation and you. That's what I mean. I guess you can't read that. I'd just like to give this handout out.
Yep.
Anyone notice the colour of the cover there? Like a great detail with that. Actually, if you notice, it's very symbolic, the black on the white there. And if you notice also, the black is the minority. Okay. Well, if you'd like to turn over to the first page. I've got a couple of transparencies. Unfortunately, this one got a bit smudged, so if you just refer to that, better off. That's right. Anyone? You can still read it, partly, can't you? But just refer to your notes. In 1992, the Council for Aboriginal Reconciliation was first formed. It consists of 25 members. 12 of the members are Aboriginal, 2 members are Torres Strait Islanders, and the 11 other members are from the wider community. They devolved a scheme of 8 key issues to help with the process of reconciliation. Can anyone tell me why the Council for Aboriginal Reconciliation was formed? No one?
Just to help Aboriginal people out. They're just falling into a hole and no one's helping them out.
That's a good idea. Basically, it was to build bridges between the wider community and Aboriginal people. So, it went through Parliament and that's why the council was formed. Now the council come up with 8 key issues in the process of reconciliation. You just like to turn over to your next page. Actually, I'd like to tell you a little story. Recently, myself and Kath Malloy and Steve Ridgway went on a display, a recruitment display to Cowra. We were trying to recruit some Aboriginals as possibly retained firefighters or permanent firefighters. But Cowra itself has got a bit of a history as being a racist town. There's a lot of conflict between the white and black communities. And so we went there in the hope that if we could recruit an Aboriginal into the fire brigade. On several occasions, the fire brigade's been up to the mission at Cowra and they've had rocks thrown at them. And because there is a bit of a tension between the two communities, the black and the white community, they've had a few problems. We thought these problems could easily be solved by just having one Aboriginal on the Cowra retained brigade, and I think you'd find that these issues wouldn't be relevant anymore. I mean, I think it'd be easily solved by just having one Aboriginal riding the fire engine and acting as a role model in the community, talking to the other Aboriginal people in the mission. So,
Were you successful?
oh, sorry. Yes, we have 3 interested parties, but nothing has really eventuated. Has it, Kat?
There's one strong possibility we're hopeful. One of the boys there is interested, and you've still got to get enough confidence up to go and knock on the front door. So we're working on that.
Okay. Can we just go back to the vision of the Aboriginal Council for Reconciliation? Can anyone see anything wrong with this vision?
Why is there a break between the actual symbol of boomerang and that symbol underneath?
Oh, look, that's just mine. The vision itself.
Sorry.
We've got, if you don't mind, we dissect it. We've got a united Australia which respects this land of ours. Is anything wrong with that?
No.
I mean, we all want to look after this country. You know, it's a beautiful country we've been given. But one thing I'll say, Aboriginals have been here in Australia for 40,000, possibly 100,000 years on latest research. So they have a bit of a history. And in that 40,000 years, they lived and worked with the land, and they had a harmonious relationship. In 200 years, not meaning to belittle any European settlement in Australia or anything like that, but in 200 years we managed to turn the Cooks River into a sewerage outlet. You know, the pollution in Sydney, it's rather disgusting. You can see the brown haze over the town, and you have to question sometimes, you know, which race is actually doing the right things. I mean, you know, I know Aboriginals mightn't have the technology, the pollution, but they did live harmonious with the land, and we've managed to make a hell of a mess of it in 200 years. So, to provide justice and equity for all. Now, I don't want to upset Steve or anything, but if we take the Aboriginal part out of it, it almost sounds like the motto for Superman, doesn't it? Justice, equity for all, you know, isn't that truth? Justice in the Australian way.
Yeah.
So, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's just equal rights, and plus having values for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander heritage. I think what it all boils down to really is respect. You could sum it up in one word. Respect for people, respect for the land, and that's basically it. Now the Council for Reconciliation come up with these 8 key issues. The first one being land and sea. Just get rid of that. Land and sea. Could anyone tell me what that means? What would that be? Being a key issue. No, well, all it is understanding that Aboriginals have a unique understanding with the land. They carry out ceremonies respecting the land. They respect the fact that the spirits and the tracks of those who've come before us are still there in the land, and that's a sacred thing. So if anyone can accept, you know, all you're really doing is accepting the past and the history and things that have come before us, really. So if everyone can accept that, and what happens, more importantly, is when that relationship is denied. Like many Aboriginals will go fishing, you know, they'll live off the land. It's a simple lifestyle, but you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we're all in here stressing out, trying to do the best for ourselves, you know. we'd all rather be out fishing or, living a basic lifestyle, but unfortunately it's very hard to live like that. So you've got to understand when this is being taken away, what's happened to these people. So now the next one is relationships, and that goes back to the same thing again. I mean, for 200 years, and not wanting to offend Steve, but Aboriginals have been virtually, I'd say, put down and are treated as second-class citizens in this country. And this is their own country. I mean, they've had violence against them, they've had their children taken away, whole communities have been shifted from places, they've been regulated and supervised since the start, and all of this they had no choice about. So you've got to understand what's happened in this short period of time. I mean, it's only 200 years, and this isn't really history. Like, this is still happening today. I think Steve would be able to tell you, if you walked in, like, I'm lucky because I'm not as dark as Steve, but if you walked into a place, people look at you straight away and they make an assumption you're an Aboriginal, and a lot of people, unfortunately, have the assumption that Aboriginals are drunks or, layabouts, or unfortunately. So if we can change that attitude, then we'll be doing well. And hopefully today I'm trying to change that just a little bit if I can. Do my 2 bobs worth. Okay, cultures. Australia's got a lot of cultures, very culturally diverse, but Australia's first culture was the Aboriginal culture. They have a strong culture. It's been ripped apart, but it survived. When with children being taken away, families being destroyed, they've really had it tough. But now their culture is surviving, and hopefully they'll continue to survive into the future. Histories. Well, Australia has a history, but no one really gets taught any history bar outside 1770 when Captain Cook arrived in Australia, and from then on. And that's what I went through school, and that's what I was taught, and probably all of you were taught, but there's no talk of any history before that. And as I said before, there's 40,000 years of history there, or more, on the Aboriginal side. So there's a lot you could learn.
Are they documented the history, or are they?
No, Aboriginal history, there's past, but unfortunately most of it's by word of mouth, isn't it, Steve?
A lot of it's those stories, isn't it?
Stories, telling, So, but the history of Aboriginal and white Australia for the last 200 years is rather brutal. We know the stories. I recently went to Tasmania, and in Tasmania they had a map in one of the what do you call it? Like a museum. It was in Devonport. And they had a map of Tasmania. I thought, yeah, that's very interesting, and we won't make any jokes about map of Tasmania, will we? But there's on the map of Tasmania, I was quite interested because there are 2 lines, and I was reading about it, and these 2 lines represent lines of troops, and these troops went through Tasmania and virtually committed genocide on the whole Aboriginal race in Tasmania. Now, today that's absolutely shocking. I mean, these things wouldn't happen today, and that's just one of the atrocities that has happened to the Aboriginal people of this country. I sort of think, like, if with all the things that happen to Aboriginal people, that they do need a helping hand. I mean, a lot of people say, like they want to look after themselves, and she'll be right, but Aboriginal people have been told virtually that you know, you're a second-class citizen for all these years, and now, you know, only now are they starting to make inroads into the wider community. So, all right, disadvantage. Well, we've already talked about some of the disadvantages, but one of the main things is to address the disadvantages. Statistics, and these are government statistics, say that Aboriginals are the poorest, unhealthiest, least employed, worst housed and most imprisoned members of the Australian society. They are 3 times more likely to be unemployed, and 11% of Aboriginals over 15 have never gone on to secondary education. So you can see that there's a lot of things that need to be changed. There's a history of the loss, well, in history of the loss of the land and the power. That is one of the main reasons why they believe that Aboriginal people have been disadvantaged. Custody levels. Can anyone tell me what that means?
Custody of children.
Eh? No. Custody. Well, there's a lot of Aboriginals in jail.
That's what this is.
So,
Yes.
Aboriginals, let me read my own writing, excuse me. They're 20 times more likely than the wider community to be imprisoned in jail for some offence. Out of a survey done by the government of 99 Aboriginals in imprisonment, it was found that only 2 of these Aboriginals had gone on to secondary school, and 43 of them have been separated or taken away from their parents as a young child and placed either in a mission or in foster care with a white family. So you can understand that the reason why they've gone to jail. I mean, they're not educated, and a Royal Commission discovered that the main reasons why these people were there were economic disadvantage, social disadvantage, and political disadvantage. So, does everyone understand that? Okay. Time. Oh. Okay, if I could just finish up with the last 2 points. Destiny. Aboriginal people want to have control over their own future. Does anyone see anything wrong with that? You know, they don't want to be separated from the wider community, but they want to have control over themselves. I mean, it gives you a greater self-esteem, you have your own direction, and basically that's what they're going about now. And the final one, formal document, basically what they're talking about is getting a formal document together to write down an agreement between the community, Aboriginal people, with relation to all these key issues, in the hope that they'll be able to solve these key issues, and it's a written document as a proven commitment. So just summing it up, there you have it. We have land and sea, relationships, cultures, histories, a disadvantage, custody levels, destiny, and formal document. I hope you all understand that. And if I could just, one last thing, if I could ask everyone personally, how do they think they could help with the process of reconciliation, be it personally or have any great ideas? So,
I have better understanding of the Aboriginal ways, where they come from.
Write letters to the government, act on reconciliation. Yeah, and explain what other people are saying, what you just told us.
Don't give special consideration and targeting Aboriginal groups for funding, etc., but keep them under the general umbrella as, target areas of history and so forth, which is really relevant and should be targeted, but treat them equally, the social security, the whole kit and caboodle, so that they come under the same umbrella and they start to be treated equally and to be seen equal by people. At the moment they're seen as
a lot of people say, finance-wise, like, why should Aboriginals get more for this? Or
that's what I'm saying, that's the perceived opinion. It may not be the case, but that's perceived. So if you put them all into the same boat and the same umbrella as everybody else, if they want to be treated equally, they should receive the same equal benefits.
The thing is, though, I think being treated equal, that's all right. We all want to be treated equal. But sometimes, you've got to start off on a level playing field. And Aboriginals aren't on a level playing field. I mean, I've played the statistics, and sometimes you do have to make that little bit more effort. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think just if they can get the whole thing happening without the people in charge being worried about the dollars, say sorry without the fear of being sued for compensation, because if a white person sues at the drop of a hat, so why shouldn't a black person be able to? Even if it comes to that, I'm not saying they want money, but why be afraid of having to pay? They screw it up.
Okay.
I just had more idea of the history. But I've got a question for you. How does other ethnic minorities, like, say, as you get sort of like Asians coming in and that, how do they perceive Aboriginal culture? Do you know much about how they treat it?
No, I don't, not really. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I'd like to put it the other way, though, is, Aboriginals were the first peoples in this country. And yet there's Italians, other immigrants that have come here, Chinese, over the years, and they've been accepted fully into society. Yet Aboriginal people, for some reason, have always been outcast of Australian society, and hopefully we can change some of that.
Steve, very good talk. I'm glad Darren didn't try and stop you because I wanted you to finish. I think, like for myself and others, we can probably help out by not having those stereotypes that you discussed about Aboriginal people. And when I've been fortunate, I've had an association with Steve now for a number of years. So, realistically, I don't have much contact with Aboriginal people, but if we can all do our little bit and over time chip away at things, I think it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's about time we stop listening to the politicians and listening to all the bad reports in the media and start finding out for ourselves what it's all about. I know myself personally, I was very, I hadn't actually looked at the issue and I hadn't actually researched it myself, and then I was put in a position to do so. And it was such an eye-opener once I got involved and started actually looking at really what is actually happening out there. And there's a lot to be learned. I think we just start opening our eyes and start understanding that people do have different cultures and we should respect them for that. And I think you'll find if you do that and you start treating people with respect, you'll get an awful lot back.
Fantastic. Our cameraman.
Justice for everyone.
And Steve.
Shake hands.
Smile at the camera, Steve.
Rabbits.
Okay,